Can everybody see my screen okay?
Absolutely.
Excellent. I too am Teams, and this is new. Okay, cool. Thank you, Martin. So as Martin said, I'm going to be talking about keeping L&D on the agenda. But I'm going to start because there's so many of you talking about it being your first members meeting and may not know who we are. So as Martin said, we're a very small company based around the corner from CLC who create bespoke content specifically for the charity sector. So that is not all we do, but I would say at the moment it's 100%, but it can drop to about 80%. But that is our passion. That's where the space we want to be in, and it's the topics that we want to be working with. So just a little photograph to show you a bit of a vibe for who we are. I think if you enjoy working with CLC, I'd like to think that you'd get a similar feeling from working with us. It's about, creating great content, doing the best we can be, but also doing that with a bit of humor and some creativity. Just to kind of put some of these photographs in context, because it looks like all we do is travel about. The images of us, so the image with me in a striped top, that is us on a ferry. The one next to it is us on a tram, and the one next to that is a train station, and that's a project that we did for the National Autistic Society, where we got to take 360 images at all of those locations. We had amazing support from the companies who helped us, so that we could create something really engaging and interactive for the train companies around autism and how to support autistic travellers. So that's why it looks like we just drive about, but we don't. That was a particular project, and it was amazing fun, and we loved every moment of it, and it's been a very successful project. So as Martin said, I speak a lot at CLC members meetings. It's one of my favourite things to do. And over the years, I think I've kind of learned how to get it right for you guys. And when I get good feedback, it's normally because I've done these things. So the first thing is make it as really practical. Get you lot involved because you are the experts. And so I'm going to do that. And the last one is stay in my lane, i.e. talk about content. And as Martin has correctly pointed out, today I am dropping the third wheel of my Venn diagram and I am stepping out of my wheel, so my lane. So why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing it because I've been in this space for an awful long time. I did my master's in e-learning in 2020, so we're 23 years now. And this isn't my first recession, dare I say that word. It isn't my first downturn. And the thing that I have observed over the years is that as soon as money starts to become short, L&D are the first ones to get the snippety snip in terms of budget. And I think this quote kind of summarized it for me. It really brought it home to me in terms of what we've seen over and over again. And I think it's that last sentence that kind of pushes it home for me in terms of what I want to say here today. So this is something that can be put aside and temporarily paused without ill effect. Now, we know that isn't true, and we need to make sure that we are proving that worth now to make sure that we're on the agenda and people can see the worth that we're bringing to the organization, because that temporary stop could have really damaging effects to the organization, because L&D are there when there's times of change. They're there when you need to retain staff, to upskill, to reskill staff because of changes within the organization. So, learning and development is a discretionary spend, and we need to make sure that that spend is kept in place, and we need to be proving within the organization of why that's so important. It isn't all bad news though, because I have been around for a long time and I have seen lots of cuts made within L&D. But what was really interesting when I started to do the research for this session was that organizations are starting to bring those specialists into, you know, the exec team, and, you know, allowing those conversations to take place. And this study, the Workplace Learning Report, shows that that is a massive increase. And I think that's happened as a result of COVID. COVID did a lot of terrible things to us all. But what it did was it helped put L&D on the map for being the go-to source when you need to deal with very difficult situations. And we've heard lots of talks from members about the really amazing things that they did in such a terrible situation. And so the news is better than I think it has been in the past for us, because I think that organizations have started to actually really recognize that actually that charities, that L&D within charities can really, you know, have an impact. And I've seen that in some of the conversations that I've been having with my clients. I'm not an expert in this field. This is my musings, my thoughts from the conversations I've had and research I've done. One of the big drivers for me was Michelle's book, and I was slightly awkward to see that Michelle is here. So I shouldn't be, because I'm only going to say amazing things about Michelle and her book, but it did make it a little bit scary. So 100%, if you found anything I say in this session useful, buy Michelle's book. And more importantly, don't just buy it, read it, because so much of what she's saying resonated so hugely with me in terms of this area, and the things that she would say about how you put yourself on the map and how you make sure that what you're doing is having an impact. So yes, you've probably heard the book mentioned. You've probably heard Michelle speak. If you haven't bought the book already, I really hope that this session is going to be the thing that tips you over the edge. It is really easy read, but it is so insightful and really brought together lots of thinking that I've had over the years. So definitely read that book. The other thing that I would recommend is the Mind Tools podcast. Now, I say this despite them being a competitor, so don't fall in love with them. But they have some really interesting guests, and this episode particularly, I mean, I listened to it while I was doing lots of thinking around this topic, but it particularly resonated with me, even though the title might not suggest that it does, because it talked a lot about why L&D finds it difficult to prove their worth, why L&D is particularly nervous about proving its worth. I didn't agree with everything that they said, but I would really, it's a real kind of thought stimulator, this one. So I definitely, if you're into podcasts, this would be one that I would recommend. But for all of their sessions, I've heard lots of really, really interesting things. So put that on your radar. So I'm going to talk about 7 ways that I think that you can make sure that you'll stay in the game. And that's either from, you know, cuts or, you know, keeping your budget, you know, or losing your whole department. You know, these are the things that I think you can do. So I promised you some engagement, and I can't not after Danny's just done such a great session with you lot. So what I'm going to say is, I'm going to let you choose the order that we talk in. Now, if you've been to one of my sessions before, poor Amber will already be panicking because I always overrun. So if I don't manage to do all of this, this is my get out of jail, because you'll get the slides in the digital goodie bag. So what I'm going to ask you to do is somebody type very quickly what you would like us to cover first out of this list. There's jumping across to look. Oh, there's Michelle. Thanks. Glitter, right. I'm going to start with the glitter. Who doesn't like glitter? So get the glitter and brag. So Laura, who you will all know as well, has referred to the importance. Now, you'll probably have Martin say this as well. It's massively important to raise the profile of L&D through external recognition. It shouldn't have to be like that, but it is a really important thing to do. So have you ever gone for an L&D award from the Charity Learning Consortium? If you haven't, then I would recommend that you speak to your account manager about, you know, if you've got things that you think that are worth singing about, then definitely speak to them. You might be too late, because I know we're coming up to the conference. You might be too late for now, but, you know, really start to think about, what am I doing and can I get peer recognition for it? There are other L&D awards. Martin and I have our own opinions on those and their view of charities. But you know what? Let's keep going and let's keep trying to put pressure on them to really take seriously what the charity sector is doing. And you can do that through statistics and evidence, and really start to plan. Us as an organization, we will get a project from a client and I will start to be thinking about, do you know what, I think this was be a really good one for an award. So I start to put in place right at the very beginning what I need to gather in terms of evidence, what I think my client would need from to support us in that, for us to work together on that. So if you're starting a new program, start thinking about that now. What evidence can I gather about the before and the after that would help me to go for an award? Because an award is going to really raise the profile of your team within your own organization. If that seems like a little bit too far, write a case study, write about what you're doing and sing, the praises of what you're doing. That will be great for you because it helps you to think about, it's like doing these sessions for me. It really helps me to kind of think through my own musings around this, the sort of vagueness I think about things. It helps me to sit down and really solidify what I'm thinking about. And a case study will do exactly the same for you. It will help you to think about what I've done, why it was successful, what did we do that was different? What can we share with others? So think of a case study, and I know that CLC are always after great case studies. And you could do what Eleanor did and step up and actually give a presentation, because I saw the feedback. It was brilliant and everyone loved it. So you could be Eleanor, you could be that person, and then you can talk about that within your own organization to say, I did this session, had some great feedback. That's about saying what you're doing is being seen by the sector and being well regarded. So I've mentioned Eleanor, and I've said, I've given you my tip on that one. What I would like is for in the chat, or if you can turn the mic on, to anyone who's got any experience of the benefits of either doing a case study or going for an award, what impact that had. This is where I secretly, nervously look at the chat to see if anyone's going to speak. Sorry, Graham. So the question is, I would like to hear from you about anyone who's had a positive result from entering an award or doing a case study or winning an award. So, we must have lots of people in the session who have won CLC awards. What happened afterwards when you went back with your beautiful piece of glass? Did you get great feedback? Did it put you on the table? Oh, Harry.
Hiya.
Hello.
So I entered the Charity Learning Consortium Awards. It was a while ago. It was when I was still working for Victim Support, when they were a member. And entering the awards was actually really useful for me, because it made me evaluate what we'd done. It made me really think about what we'd achieved, how we'd achieved it, and the difference it made. And actually, we put all of that to the board as well, to explain to them what we had done. And we did win a couple of awards, which was fantastic. We got to promote that internally. So I guess I both had benefits personally from a lot of reflection on the work that I'd done. And also in terms of the organisation, we got a lot more eyes on L&D, what we were doing, and the fact that somebody else said that it was good. We thought we were good, but we now had proof that someone else thought we were good.
And within colleagues, I don't know if you were a one-man band, or did that raise the confidence in terms of speaking up about what you'd done?
Yeah, it did. And it also helped us. So we did have, let's say, a few sticky stakeholders who weren't particularly on board with us. But it really helped us sort of break down those barriers as well, because I guess they gained more confidence in us, as well as us being more confident to challenge back for them as well.
Oh, thank you, Harry. You saved my bacon. Okay, so we've done the glitter. What's next we talk about? And thank you, Victoria, who is advocating for case studies. Talk to the right people. Thank you. Really comes from Michelle. In fact, so much so that I've actually going to quote her. So a lot of the beginning of Michelle's book is talking about making sure that you've got the right strategy, which is one of my points, that it's aligned to the organization, and that you are really understanding what that strategy means to key people. So not just senior managers, but key people within the organization. And so if you as a L&D team are to, deliver what the organization needs, you need to really understand that, and not just what it says on paper, but really what does that mean to people? What does that mean to the people who wrote it? How does that translate to the people who are then trying to apply that? So really digging in to understand emotionally and logistically what people think that their strategy, the organization strategy, means, and how can L&D deliver. What can L&D do to deliver that? Because if you are delivering directly what the organization needs, if you're delivering the support directly that the organization needs, then that's when you're going to be adding the most amount of value. So one of the things you can do is this triangulation approach, where you're actually doing a three-pronged approach. So you're having those conversations with the right people. So that might be through kind of attending team meetings and actually talking to people on the ground. It might be formal interviews or just informal conversations. Get out there and talk to people within the organization. There might be some observation to do. So you're not specifically speaking to them, but you're observing what's happening. What's it like to do that job? What do they need? You could do it through questionnaires. You can do it through, any documentation you have around competencies or, kind of frameworks that you might have. And then the last one, so this is conversations, observations, and then the last one is production. And so that's the output. What is happening as a result of what you're doing? And so you're looking at three different aspects. You might kind of think of this as kind of formal and informal. But really trying to gather and understand from all of those different people what's happening and what is needed by, what L&D needs to do to support people to do their job at the level in which they need it. So I'm going to ask for any experiences of anyone who's attempted to do this sort of thing, where they've kind of tried to engage with the organization and have those conversations. And if I get no one, then I'm going to ask Michelle to speak and say a little bit about her experience. Oh, Graham, thank you.
That's okay. Can you hear me all right now?
I can, thank you.
No worries. So my experience of it's a live experience actually. I'm in the process of dealing with a huge diverse group of stakeholders and trying to get them to adopt a learning management system where they haven't had one before, or they've either got one that they all hate. And as you can predict, there are many, many different needs. Lots of people have got different ideas about what a system like this should do. Managers have got their own needs and wants. Senior execs have got their needs and wants, and the people who are actually on the ground using the stuff have got their own needs and wants as well. And it's a huge juggling act to try and balance all that and ensure that everyone gets what they want. And what I'm learning is that is a fool's errand. No one is ever going to get everything. You will not make everybody happy. So what I'm doing is I'm focusing my energy generally on those who are most engaged and most vocal at this point, because they're the people, I guess, who are going to make the most fuss if their needs aren't being met. My strategy really is, if you're not here and I can't hear your voice, then I'm afraid your opinion is not going to count at this stage. which sounds
Okay.
brutal, but when you're dealing with, as I've said, when you're dealing with dozens and dozens of potential sets of needs and wants, you have to apply the oil to the squeaky wheel, which I know is a cliche, but it's true. So that, I guess that's, I don't know, is that advice to say an experience? That's my process, basically.
But this process, this will be raising the profile of you and the team.
Oh, I am the team. There is no team.
Okay, so you within the organization, in terms of that, you are asking for this, for information, you are going to act upon that, and presumably you're doing some observations as well to see what people need, so that you can not just hear what they think they need, but also see what you think you can give them based on.
Absolutely. I'm trying to replicate what they do in their horrible old system that doesn't work, and sort of show them, hey, look, this can do it better, that's helping me win friends and influence people straight away. If you can replace something that's terrible and make people feel better, that they're going to love that. Anything that you can do that you can convince a person is going to make their life easier or their job easier or involve less work, that's always going to be a winner as well.
No, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm going to waffle if you don't stop me, so you carry on.
No, it's fine. No, thank you very much. Anyone else have anything? So I'm dealing with the challenge getting people to actually interact with the L&D system, having to resort to one-to-ones to get them engaged. The first hurdle are most and new need skills. Yes, and I think that it's about being seen. That talking to the right people, but it's about being seen by the organization, to be out there and to be asking and to be trying to make people's lives better, and actually having tangible results to that. And with some of my other tips, what I'll be saying is also shouting about the fact that you have had that. You need to be really proud, and you need to be talking about, we were asked for this, and this is what we've delivered, and this is how we've solved those problems, because you're presenting the best side of what you're doing, and making sure that you're communicating that with people. It sounds like, just for the CLC people, it sounds like that might be a helpful topic for people. Thank you, Michelle. So sharing stories, celebrating wins, and I think that was an interesting one. This morning session, who was our first speaker? Sorry, Martin.
Eleanor, I was on mute.
Eleanor, thank you. Eleanor talked about trials, and what a great opportunity they were to kind of, find out, get feedback, and actually then go back into the loop. So yeah, absolutely. Right, what's next? Strategy. Thank you. That really is my first one. Okay, so connect. Now, I have hacked this quote because, and I'm very clear about my hack. I never normally, I'm a professional. I don't normally hack people's quotes. I thought it would read better for you for it. So it's about aligning your strategy. So when I used to be on your side of the fence, I worked for a government organization. I ran a training department, and I created a strategy for my department that connected directly with the organization strategy. And what I was trying to do was to make sure that I was showing that we could solve the problems that they had. We could help them meet their goals. And so by doing that, then obviously you're, connecting much more with what's happening. So if it's to have a positive impact, it needs to be as close and as clear to those drivers from the organization. Another fancy pants quote here from one of the leading consultancies is that, it's about being able to shape the strategy to meet needs, and that it should be about, making sure that you're delivering on what's needed. So how can you do that? So you know, questions that I would be asking myself if I was in your position is my strategy directly aligned with the organization strategy? Can I literally make connections between them? Am I able to talk about my strategy and promote it? Am I promoting the successes, which, you know, we've talked a little bit about, but am I living and breathing that strategy? It is not a thing to write and then put on the shelf. The strategy I had a summary 2-page document. All of my team were engaged with that, and we were reviewing it and updating it. It was a living document for us as things were changing within the organization. So, you know, we had some core things that we were doing that related to the organizational strategy. And then we had, you know, how we were then addressing that changed. And it was a living thing that we stayed with. So, you know, the drill. Is anyone willing to talk about their learning and development strategy and how it connects with their organizational strategy? Has anyone done this? And what was the results? Liz, I'll go to you because I know you're writing one.
Yeah, so well, I'm not writing it. My colleague's writing an L&D strategy. We're not calling them strategies. We're calling them plans. And we've got an RSPCA plan, and then we're part of people and culture, and we've got a people plan, and then our L&D plan, so that they should all speak to each other and relate.
And in terms of how you worked that through, did you do that through conversations to really understand what they meant by those strategies, or was that just a kind of a reflection on the document itself?
No, so the plans we've all been involved as members of staff. We've all been consulted, you know, what is important to you, certainly for the people plan. And that's formed the strategy. And then our L&D strategy has kind of come out of that.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's really useful. I think that the thing that really struck me when reading Michelle's book was very much about trying to make sure that you understand what is meant by the strategy, and you know, talking to people about why that has been picked, why you are doing it that way, and what that then means for you. So, you know, what would key stakeholders like to see from L&D in which to, you know, to support that? And yes, Martin, I didn't reference the little book, but I did have it. I did have a slide for it, and then I took it out because it wasn't specifically, and I was conscious of my always going over. But definitely, I would really recommend that in terms of, you know, looking at that book is very useful. And then Eleanor, aligning strategy with, yeah, organization values. I mean, that's a thing I haven't mentioned, but yes, very, very important in terms of making sure that what you're doing is supporting and promoting those values within the organization. Okay, what would we like to do now? Did I miss one earlier that somebody? Report. Okay, report strong and proud. So let's not be wallflowers. We report too much on activity, I would suggest, and not enough about impact. So here it says business impact, but it could just as easily say as impact. And what I mean by that is, are you reporting on test results, completion rates on e-learning, number of courses delivered, the training hours, or are you reporting on the real things that matter to the organization, which would be whatever that is, but it could be, you know, great feedback from volunteers, an increase in fundraising, which I know is probably at the top of a lot of lists at the moment, cultural trend change, you know, customer satisfaction rates, perhaps in retail. So can you directly connect your L&D offering with impact? That's must be part of your strategy. And can you report on that in a meaningful way for people? And what I mean by meaningful is, if my slide will load, are you reporting in a way that is inspiring and visual? Well, A, are you reporting? Are you reporting on the positive impact you're having on the organization? But are those reports interesting and visual, and talk to them in the language that they care about and the things that they are interested in, and you know, will make a difference to them? Do they read the reports? I know you can't have a lot of chance of that one, but if it does feel meaningful and relevant to them and in a way that they can consume it, then they are more likely to read it. Less likely to read reports on how many staff did, you know, the compliance training, but much more about how you're staying compliant. You know, can you inspire them? What are you showing people? Are the right people seeing that? You know, how can you extend the reach of that, those reports, to not just be senior managers, but maybe to a wider audience within the charity? You know, maybe it's the key stakeholders aren't necessarily those senior people, and it's more, you know, people around the organization who are real movers and shakers and who are influential. I wanted to also, in this section, I've gone rogue and I'm doing two things in this one. I think the other thing that's really interesting is that, are you reporting the current research about learning and development within your organization? So for instance, there's really interesting statistics here from the LinkedIn report, which said that 94% of employees would stay with someone longer if they felt invested. Now that is good news for an L&D team. So that is what you should be sharing with senior managers, because that's important information for them to understand and appreciate the worth of your team. So how can you do that? Are you writing some nice white papers for them on trends and expectations, bringing together some of that research and reporting to them as it applies to your charity? So really personal. Now, what that also does is it sets you up as an expert in this field, which is one of my next, hopefully someone will pick it. It's presenting that you are an expert in this field, that you are looking at that research and you are bringing that back to the organization, and you are basically allowing them to not have to do that because they're not going to. So by producing that for them, you're doing lots of different things in terms of selling L&D to those senior people, but you're also showing the expertise that you have, and why that's so important. So there you go. Graham's already doing it. Anyone else? Anyone else has ever written a white paper internally about the benefit of L&D? Good, thank you. The other thing to say is that if you need some inspiration and, oh, we briefed the board, but probably not, yeah. If you need some inspiration on some of the things that you can be talking about, I will include some of the reports that I think are really useful. CIPD, some great stuff from there. LinkedIn are really getting into this as well. But also CLC website, there's loads of case studies and overviews of, you know, 10 reasons why you should X. There's loads of good stuff on there written by experts that you can repurpose, because it's our pleasure to help you and make sure that you're doing the right thing. So, you know, plagiarize away. That you can then twist and turn and bring back into the organization into, you know, this is why we should be doing the things that we're doing. And so, you know, I know you're all super busy, so there's lots of things out there that you can use to help you to write these and show the organization. Now, I missed one earlier that somebody, authority. Yes, be the authority, which does lead nicely on to what I've just said previously. Now, be the authority, i.e., Make sure that you are seen as an expert, not a service. Now, you're going to like this one. I couldn't get a quote for this one, so I asked ChatGPT. And you know what? ChatGPT knocked it out the park. I love this quote. Learning and development experts don't just deliver training. They shape the future of the organization. They are architects of knowledge, the builders of skill, and the guide to success. Treating them as mere service providers diminishes the transformational power they bring to your charity. That is word for word what it told me. If you ever want me to do a talk on AI, that's on my list. Right, so I totally agree with this, and I agree with it on lots of different levels. If you are seen as an expert, you are also raising the profile of learning and development, because you are presenting, you're coming from this from a professional perspective, not a service delivery. So I would really like to challenge you all to think about whether or not within your organization, if you are seen as a service, i.e. a deliverer of widgets, training, or are you seen as an expert in your field? Questions you can ask around this. And, you know, some of the things that I think can help is, you know, I've talked about connecting your strategy, but speak at conferences, events. This isn't just a plug for CLC, but why not speak at their event? You know, if you are be presenting yourself as an expert by coming and doing that. But I think one of the ones that I notice a lot from, you know, when we're working with clients on developing content is that, well, two things that happen. One, that when they're creating e-learning themselves, they will often find that subject experts drive the process. Here's my source, make it pretty. You know, here's my source, make it whizzy. That is not the way to be perceived as an expert. Come up with a process, and I have written multiple blog posts on this for CLC and our website on what that process could look like, and be the person who drives it. Make them go with your process, because you are the experts in learning and development, and it is your process that should be followed to get the best out of that process. So the process that we use is specifically designed to make sure that that process works as well as it possibly can for the right outcome, not to take the musings of a subject expert and turn that into e-learning. That is not in good instructional design. So one of the ways that you can start to push back and to be seen as the expert is to take more control over that and push back on what they might be asking you to do. I think the other thing, and again, this comes from being an external supplier, is that I am often asked to speak to senior people because I'm external. And the people who ask me to do it are as equally sad about this as I am. So all too often, externals are used to prove a point. And I'm happy to do it. You know, if you need me to come, and I will come and do this for you. But that's a sad reflection on their vision of, because I am the same as you. I used to do your job. I am no different. Just because I can charge money for it on a project by project basis doesn't make me any more of an expert than you are. So that is something to be conscious of. If you're finding that external people are the ones that are having to kind of, you know, talk people into things, then something needs to be done to change that in terms of positioning yourself as you are the expert and you don't need externals, although we are very, very happy to help. One of the things I was doing when I was playing with ChatGPT to get this was one, I was talking to my husband. He had just written his staff's objectives for the year using ChatGPT. And we've talked a lot about it, and, you know, its uses and its downfalls, and that's the kind of boring conversations I have with my husband. But one of the things he did for me while we were sat on the sofa is he said, well, let me just ask it what your question is, because we talked about what you ask is what quality you get back. So he asked it, sat on the sofa, and I kid you not, 2 minutes later, I had 10 points from ChatGPT, and I agree with every single one of them. So my talk today is not about how you position yourself, but I have popped the feedback from ChatGPT into a download, and I will give that to Amber as part of the digital goodie bag, because I'd like you to see A, what points have been made, but B, some of the value that that kind of research can do. Because for me, what happened was when I'm writing things like this, I'm coming up with ideas myself based on what I've been reading and thinking about and talking to people about. And so I already have a starting point. But what ChatGPT did for me was it literally sourced the internet and brought all that together, and I then critiqued it and decided. And I can tell you that I agreed with everything that we haven't decided on gender, came up with. So that's a resource for you at the end. Anyone got any experience in this area that they are willing to share? Okay, I'm not going to push this one because we are running out of time as we thought we would. And I've got 2 more, brand or benchmark. I can't see the
Jill, I think
brand. Go on. Am I stopping?
Oh wow, that's 500. Don't know whether you can hear that. Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes, so let's jump straight in.
Okay, cool. I'll do brand because that's the one. Okay, so brand yourself. Now, again, this comes very much from my own personal experience. So if we're not branding ourselves well, we're not clear enough on our purpose and presenting our value. So this is something I did when I was running my internal department in the old days. I basically ran my training department as if it was a small business. And that meant we had our own brand. We had our own strategy. We promoted ourselves internally through awareness events, lots of things that you're doing. But by having that specific brand thinking, I was able to create momentum around the thinking. I wasn't just a department, I was a thing. And people really resonated with it. And it took what was a kind of dying department from 0 to, really successful. So one of those things that you're doing when you're starting a business, and to be honest, that experience is why I have a business now, because by running my department as a business, it meant when I actually thought about running a business, it didn't feel like much of a step for me mentally. So one of the things you do when you're starting a business, thinking about that, is that you're always putting yourself in the customer's shoes. How am I going to sell? How do I make it appealing to them? So by think of it in that way, that will help you to do it. What sets you apart from other departments? Think about what departments are well known, what well regarded, well supported. What are they doing that you're not doing? And sometimes that comes down to the fact is, we can't be without finance because finance is indispensable. Well, make yourself indispensable. So, think about it from that perspective. Finance, have professionals, with qualifications, and they're indispensable. Well, what can you do to be that, to replicate that? So then, once you've got your brand identity, use that then to promote yourself, your worth, and your opportunities. And I know it's cringy because we call them lifts, but if someone in a senior role asked you to summarize the benefit of L&D to them, you need to have an answer, and it needs to be powerful, and it needs to sing to them, not to you. Some of the stuff that I've been listening to on the Mind Tools podcast has been very much about how we talk our internal language, and we don't talk the language of the business, and that's how we sell to them. Right, because I am running low, I'm just going to make you have the last one on your own. So benchmark, and I'm going to say this because, again, CLC have this. They've got you covered. So this is a lovely quote that Amber provided me based on the experiences of a member and how important and useful. But, you know, so that was one person's experience. But, you know, if you go back to the research, it is absolutely that the top performing organizations are doing this. You know, Martin and the team will tell you over and over again. So have you done the CLC index? If you haven't, really recommend it. You know, we've been listening for years from Laura about the benefits of this. I am sold. I am in. You know, talk to your membership manager. Is that the right term?
Yep.
And they will be able to help you with this. And it does all of these good things. And for me, the thing that resonates the most is not just pitting yourself against the sector, which is really important for all the things I've talked about again here, but very much about where are we? What am I doing? What's working? You know, it's that inward reflection, I think, that's particularly helpful. So I'm not going to ask that. I am going to then just go lastly to say, if you don't mind, Martin, is that Amber and I are organising based on requests from you guys. I'm running a learning and design workshop. Eleanor has very kindly said that she will host us at their offices in Edinburgh. If you would like more information or to book, you can use that QR code and that URL.